I'm making a real quick video just to tell you a little bit about our next unit. We will be writing a critical response. In this next unit we will learn about academic writing, specifically writing about texts. To understand this next assignment, critical response, we must first understand a couple of key terms. First, we must understand what a text is. A text can be anything that we read. A menu, an article in a newspaper. A text is not necessarily limited to something that's printed or print. We can consider a visual a text. As a matter of fact, this video that I'm making right now we could think of as a text. A television show might be a text. For example, you might have a sociology class in the future where your teacher asks you to write about gender roles in The Simpsons, or portraits of parenthood or parenting in South Park. In both of those cases, your teacher is asking you to respond critically to those texts. And also, too, the word text isn't even limited to non-life forms, right? We can use the word text to refer to people, right? Anything that we read can be considered a text, all right? And, for example, we read people. Anyway, all right, so many things can be called a text. Basically, anything that we want to read and study carefully can be called a text. By responding to a text, we mean that we are forming our own opinion or judgment of that text, whatever that text is. A critical response is a response that is thoughtful and carefully considered. So don't think that a critical response needs to be critical in the sense of picking something apart and pointing out everything that's wrong with it, just saying nasty and mean things about it. That's not what we mean by critical. Instead, what we mean by critical is thoughtful and careful. To form our own opinion on any given text, we must first come to understand that text. This requires active reading. That is, we want to understand what we read. We want to understand what we're responding to. And to do this, we need to actively read whatever it is we're being asked to respond to. And that means entering into a conversation with the text, kind of challenging the text, asking questions of the text. The text is silent, it just kind of lays there, but we ask these questions and we keep looking at the text to see how the text can answer our own questions. So we have to enter into a conversation with the author when we are responding to a text critically. We have to think about what the author is saying, why the author is saying what she's saying, the way she's saying it, what's going on at the time the text was written that impacts the shape of the text, the way the text is written, the way the argument goes. And we want to think about audience, purpose, the writing situation in general to understand the text. So we are going to write a critical response on Carol Dweck's article called Brainology. So before we can form an opinion of brainology, we need to know it really well. I mean, think about it. Doesn't that make sense, right? You don't like it when people form opinions of you when they don't really know you that well, right? So we don't want to do the same thing. We don't want to form an opinion of Carol Dweck's Brainology article if we don't really understand it that well. So in order to understand brainology, we need to be active readers. So we need to learn some active reading strategies that will help us understand exactly what Dweck is saying in Brainology. Rules for Writers, Chapter 46, is going to help us learn these active reading strategies. In fact, the chapter is going to help us walk through basically the writing of this critical response paper. So that's why one of the things that you're going to be asked to do this week is to read Chapter 46 in Hacker and take the online quiz on Chapter 46. All right, and you want to do that as soon as you can so that you can then use that knowledge that you learned from reading chapter 46 in the writing of your own critical response paper. All right, so you do a good job on the paper. Let's see, we will learn how to annotate a text. We're going to annotate Brainology. We're also going to outline Brainology, so we see the structure of her argument, we see how she put her article together, and we're going to write a summary of her article. And that summary that we write of her article is going to, for the most part, serve as the introduction in our critical response. So writing that summary is going to serve two purposes, so that's a good reason to make sure you do a really good job on it. All right, so in essence, to really get to know a text, you've got to break it apart and look carefully at how all those parts are working together and to see how it works. Taking something apart to see how it works, that's called analysis. When you take something apart and you look at how the different parts all work together to create a whole that has a certain purpose, that's trying to get some kind of job done. So it's called analysis. So just recap real quick some important key terms that we must know from the very get-go. Text. First, it's important to know that a text can really refer to anything that's being read, anything that we read, even read with these apologetic quotes like people, we read people, can be considered a text. So a newspaper article can be a text, a textbook can be a text, a TV commercial can be a text, this video itself is a text, my notes that I wrote to make this video could be considered a text, menu in a restaurant could be a text, the phone book could be a text. Responding. When we're responding to a text, that means that we're forming our own opinions or thoughts about that text. When we do a critical response, that just means that we're forming our opinion carefully and thoughtfully. We're really looking at what we're forming an opinion about, in great detail and very thoughtfully and carefully. Active reading strategies. Active reading strategies are anything that helps us kind of really enter into the conversation of what it is we're reading, enter into the conversation of the text that we're reading. All right, active reading strategies include annotating a text, outlining a text, or writing a summary of a text. Okay, so that is a little kind of quick overview of our next assignment, and so let's get to work.